Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth is Bandai's new generation of JRPGs in the Digimon franchise. Most of the previous Digimon games have been a mixture of RPG and the virtual pet elements, but usually previous games have leaned more heavily either into the RPG elements or the virtual pet elements. Cyber Sleuth forgoes most of the virtual pet elements to go for a completely JRPG experience. And it honestly feels like a Persona game in a lot of aspects. I was watching my wife play Persona 5 as I played Cyber Sleuth, and so I think that a lot of times I would look at it and go, these look pretty similar. So I think that Cyber Sleuth was heavily inspired by Persona 4. A lot of the similarities between the Persona series and Cyber Sleuth are hard to miss. The social links with Digimon and human characters that they tried to form, a texting system to kind of facilitate those relationships, and then the chosen responses that you could make, except Digimon didn't really utilize these very well. That leads me to ask the question, is Cyber Sleuth a bad game? Let's jump into that real quick. So to answer that question, I want to focus first on the positives. Cyber Sleuth has a cool and complex Evo system. Digimon uses webs of evolutions instead of straight lines of evolutions. Whereas Pokemon goes from Charmander to Charmeleon to Charizard, Digimon has Botomon getting to either Omnimon, War Greymon, Skull Greymon. He can go off and be a virus Digimon, he could be a vaccine Digimon, he could be a free Digimon, and all these different types of Digimon could digivolve from the same in-training Digimon. I think that makes it feel really in-depth, and it's honestly more relaxed because there isn't like a Pokédex to fill. Yes, you want to see all the different Digimon that you can find in Cyber Sleuth, but it isn't part of the story or as and isn't as necessary, it feels like, to the story as it is in, say, Pokemon, where you're literally sent on a quest to catch all the Pokemon. Digimon has a really interesting story to it, and it involves the real world and the digital world colliding, as is usual for Digimon stories. And the characters actually in Cyber Sleuth are really interesting. I found myself enjoying the interactions between the different characters, and I found myself wanting these main characters to win and to form their relationships again when they would like kind of have a falling out. And I wanted these relationships and friendships to stick around. And I don't do that very often. That's why I don't play many RPGs. But in Cyber Sleuth, I actually really enjoyed it. And I thought that the characters were really cool. The sound design's also awesome, although it is way louder than any other game on my Switch. I did play this on the Switch. I played the complete edition, so I'm done with Cyber Sleuth. I'm gonna move into Hacker's Memory next. But I did play it on the Switch, and it is way louder. Like, on my TV, I have the volume typically around, like, 10 for most games. This one goes straight down to 6 or less. Like, I can hear it on 3, and most games I can't. It is insanely loud in some of the sound design, but the soundtrack is awesome. Every time I went back into the detective agency, I loved the bluesy kind of jazz mixed with some digital elements. I love going into the digital world and having that digital soundtrack playing. Just everything felt, all the different themes really matched the characters, the places that you were going to, or the situations you were in, and I really found myself enjoying them. The graphics are awesome, even on the Switch, and the Digimon look really good. The models look really cool. The only one that really stood out to me as being kind of derpy looking is Agumon, because he doesn't really have a neck, despite the fact that the real Digimon does have a neck. So that was kind of weird to me. But, you know, I guess beggars can't be choosers. He could have had the neck that he had in the first movie in Japan. Sadly, he has zero neck, so his shoulders just go straight into his head. Cyber Sleuth also provides a bunch of Digimon that should make most Digimon fans happy. They were missing Tuskmon and Dark Tyrannomon, which are two of my favorite Digimon. But we had Tyrannomon, so I guess I couldn't complain too much. But can all those positives outweigh the problems with the game? There's no English voice acting in the English release, which is kind of annoying. It makes long cutscenes feel dull instead of making them feel interesting, and there's a lot of exposition to be done, especially since it's a Digimon game where you're trying to explain how digital fragments exist in the real world. And they have all these long explanations for stuff, and you really don't enjoy it because you're not hearing it acted out. You have to read it on the screen. You can kind of hear it in the voice actors in the speaking Japanese, but it isn't really that interesting or engaging because I can't hear what they're saying or how they're saying it because I don't know Japanese. If you know Japanese, maybe you'll get more out of it than I did, but I don't know Japanese. I want to learn it, but I really didn't get all that much out of the voice acting in this game just because all of it is in Japanese and I couldn't get a lot of the emotion out of it. Some chapters of the game start off with a cutscene. You walk from point A to point B, and then it ends with a cutscene, and then you move on to the next chapter. That happens twice, and it was kind of brutal to get through because the cutscenes don't have English voice acting to keep the exposition from feeling exposition-y. I mean, this game is kind of the definition of tell, don't show, and it's really, really heartbreaking considering I love Digimon. I felt myself invested in the characters and the story, but I feel like I could have been taken to the next level if it had English voice acting to kind of engage me a little bit more in those longer cutscenes. Another misstep in the game is a weird texting system. It doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't make the game any more enjoyable. It doesn't make the Digimon that you text more likable or like you more. It doesn't make your mom appear more likable, which was really a shame. Like, you seem to have a strained relationship with your mom, which seems to be something they were trying to develop in the game, but I didn't really care because I don't interact with my mom outside of the texting thing, and she would only text me when it was extremely inconvenient. And I don't know, I just didn't really feel a big connection to the texting mechanic in this game where you're just like, oh yeah, contact these people, have this canned response, and then they'll send you one text back. And it wasn't like a conversation. It would be like, this person sent this message, you respond with this canned response, they respond with their canned response, and that was it. And then they would text you something else entirely, and then you'd go through the 3-message little prompt again, and then that was it. And it just felt like a waste of time. Honestly, it felt like a waste of space. It felt like a waste of a mechanic that you could have maybe put something else in place of that data. I don't know. It didn't do anything for me, honestly. It didn't make me feel more engaged with the story. It actually kind of pulled me out of the story a lot of times because I'd be in the middle of going from point A to point B, which is basically the entire gameplay from this game if you're not fighting. And they would just be like, hey, here's a text, and I'm like, do I want to answer this text or do I want to get to the boss fight? And I felt like I wanted to get to the boss fight every time rather than texting someone. A way that they could have fixed that is actually have some responses and some conversations between people. Maybe even have kind of the Persona-esque relationship system where it's like, hey, you know, you ranked up with this person in Social Link. They like you more, they like you less. That could have been happening, but I didn't feel any indication that it was happening. There wasn't any like, hey, this cop lady who doesn't like you at the start likes you more now. Like, she kind of treats you like garbage throughout the whole story. Hey, this girl who you meet kind of has a little bit of a flirtationship with you now, or she seems to trust you more now. Like, that's kind of what happens in most RPGs as you go throughout the game. So I didn't feel like that was happening as a result of the texting, as a result of me spending more time with this person. It just kind of happened as a result of the story, and the texting thing didn't really seem to add anything to it. Cyber Sleuth feels like it takes forever to go anywhere. The texting interrupts you, the cutscenes constantly interrupt you, and even when the cutscenes are necessary, you don't really want to be in them. And it does finally take off after Chapter 10, and the story gets really interesting. My problem is it takes forever for you to get there. There are some pretty crazy story beats, but that kind of fits Digimon as a franchise in general. I mean, obviously you are inhabiting a cyber body, or a body that is made up entirely of digital data within the real world, and that in and of itself is crazy. I find it really charming whenever there's a ridiculous story beat, and what's really cool is a lot of the characters will be like, that's crazy, that shouldn't be able to happen, and you're like, well, it's happening, how else can you explain it? And I really enjoy that about this game. But Cyber Sleuth is does have the slow start. It does have kind of half-baked mechanics, but I found the story overall really enjoyable, and if you like really over-the-top stuff, this is going to be perfect for you. Despite the slow start, the half-baked mechanics, and the lack of English voice acting, which kind of felt like it slowed things down even further, I found myself really enjoying it, and I'm really looking forward to playing through Hacker's Memory. So let's get back to the original question. Is Cyber Sleuth a bad game? I can't say that it's a good game, It is enjoyable for Digimon fans, and it is definitely something that Mon collecting kind of fans will enjoy. I think if you liked Pokemon, you should give Digimon a shot. I mean, honestly, after Sword and Shield, Cyber Sleuth might be a breath of fresh air for some Pokemon fans who are feeling a little shut out by that. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the way that the typing system worked with weaknesses and resistances and strengths. I enjoyed the evolution webs. I enjoyed all the mechanics that Digimon needs to include in order to be a Digimon game. I didn't like a lot of the extraneous stuff that they tried to throw in to feel more like Persona. It honestly felt like Digimon the Persona game, or Digimon Persona Edition. And I think that those things could have been left out and you wouldn't have even noticed. It wouldn't have made anything feel less or make anything feel better. It just kind of wouldn't have been necessary in the first place. So is Cyber Sleuth a bad game? Not for Digimon fans. On an objective level, there were really questionable decisions made. None of them were so offensive, though, that I was just like, okay, I'm done. Like, I can't play this anymore. I kind of got there almost a couple of times, but nothing really pushed me away. As soon as the cutscene seemed to drag on too long, it would end, and I'd be like, you know what? This is cool. I'm down for this. And I enjoyed it. I really did. So I know this review is pretty late, considering Cyber Sleuth came out forever ago, but I do want to revisit some of these older games, especially RPGs, and just kind of see if my perspective on them has changed since new stuff has come out. Obviously, with things like Sword and Shield coming out, you go back and play Cyber Sleuth, and you're like, do I enjoy Cyber Sleuth more or less in light of Sword and Shield? And you get kind of a different paradigm looking backwards through these other games that are graphically supposed to be more advanced, or story-wise could kind of build off of these other games. And so I wanted to go back and visit some of these games that I haven't played, which I've never played Cyber Sleuth, and see if I have a different perspective on them than I would have if I played them back when they came out. And Cyber Sleuth, I'd say, honestly holds up against a lot of the games that are coming out today. It has a more interesting story than Sword and Shield does. It has a more lasting story than Sword and Shield does. The evolution mechanics and everything of Digimon and the designs of Digimon, honestly, capture me more than Sword and Shield's Pokemon designs did. And I find myself really enjoying Cyber Sleuth a lot. If you like this review, let me know. This is how I kind of want to do some of my reviews from here on out. So, like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. That'll all be down below in the video, and I'll put it in the description of the video. And I stream on Twitch every Tuesday and Thursday from 7 to 9 at in the afternoon, evening, whatever that is. I'm glad that you jumped in and watched my video. Thanks for coming. Comment any games maybe you think that I should revisit, or anything that you think I should do. And yeah, we'll have fun with it. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.